Welcome back, everyone, to the Alpha Takes podcast. Special album review. How we kind of rate albums and go about it is we kind of break them down track by track, kind of shine light to everything. Nowadays, albums, I guess, are not super, enticing and intriguing to people. So we kind of want to give more light to that. I love listening to albums front to back. There are some albums that you find where you really don't skip through any track and you can just put it on and just let it play, So we kind of do that. We break it down track by track, and we don't really score. We don't give ratings, to albums. What we do is by the end, we kind of recommend a few songs that we really enjoy, that maybe if you don't have the time for a full album or whatever, you can listen to those and kind of see if maybe you'll get into it, just kind of based off a few tracks. Mm-hmm. That's kind of our whole process. So if you're here for any kind of rating or score, fortunately, that's not us.
You can head to Pitchfork or the Needle Drop for that.
Exactly.
Because we don't do that here.
But Wallied has recommended a really kind of out of nowhere album for me. I mean, this is something that is new, but it has like a kind of nostalgic feel to it. This really kind of
interesting. Okay.
Really surprised me in many ways. What are we talking about?
Yeah, so today we're talking about one of my favorite albums of the year so far. It's called Sinister Grift by Panda Bear. And so Panda Bear for me has been an artist I've been following since college through his band that he's in, that he does drumming for and backing vocals for, Animal Collective, which is one of my all-time favorite bands ever. They blend a lot of genres. They do a lot of different styles of music. They go to so many different turns. I discovered him through there, and I found out that he has a lot of solo music outside of the Animal Collective. And so I would say his music kind of blends between being like, he blends a lot of different genres. He gets a lot of comparisons to Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys. That's one comparison I'll always hear with Panda Bear's music. And rightfully so. If you listen to any of his albums like Person Pitch or like Panda Bear Meets the Grim Reaper, there's a lot of like psychedelic pop influence, of a lot of 60s harmonies, things like that. But he blends a lot of different styles between like electronic and hip hop and even like experimental and even some rock music. I would say between his early records and like his last record he did with this producer named Sonic Boom, which I will say with Sonic Boom, he's basically the guy you call if you want your music to be super psychedelic, basically. And so with this album, this was his second time co-producing with one of the other members of Animal Collective. His name is Deacon. He's very fantastic. He's my favorite member of the collective. I'll have to talk about his album someday too, Sleep Cycle, which is fantastic. But this was the first time they co-produced together, actually. And so with this album, it's definitely a lot more of a different change of pace for Panda Bear. It definitely leans more into the surf rock sound and a little bit of ambient at times. And obviously you still have like the 60s psychedelic pop influence in there, but it definitely is a lot more of a change of pace for Panda Bear this time around. And lyrically too, I'll just kind of give a little fair warning to you guys. This does lean into a lot of really dark topics, like suicide and a lot of other topics that are not really suitable for a younger audience. So I just want to give a little viewer discretion advised, because this is kind of one of the things that I do really love with the album, is that it does juxtapose with the really sad and dark lyrics of what Panda was going through. So yeah, Nabaahi, what was kind of your experience? I know you probably haven't heard of Animal Collective and all this other stuff, so you kind of put the first track on and everything. What was kind of like, I guess, your expectations going into it when I recommended it?
I honestly had no expectations. I feel like this is one of those moments where it's really left up to interpretation of how you want to experience this kind of album. Time and place for it, I really wish I kind of had more of a somber experience to kind of match this record. I really wish I kind of put myself in a better kind of mind state with it. just because I did kind of just put it on in the car and everything. And while it's serviceable and it hits hard, I really feel like this is something that you definitely want, like a quiet space. You want to kind of get in touch with the emotions and everything, you know, because definitely putting it on, I was just like, whoa, this is like something that sounds like a time capsule, yet it's coming out today and really has like this emotional aspect to it, you know. I'd never heard of this group or any of the members involved, so I really was kind of able to paint my own canvas, you know.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. All right. So we'll get into the album and everything. So we'll get into the first track. It's called Praise. And this was actually the final single that was released for the album, actually. And man, it's a fantastic intro. Like, I love just the guitars that kick in. This is one thing I love with a lot of Deacon's production, is that he really is guitar heavy. I don't know how he does it, but he is able to just get like really great guitar licks, whether it's through this album or the stuff he does with Animal Collective. But man, do they just suck you in quickly. I love the drums. I love just how crisp they are. And then the vocals are just, from Panda, are phenomenal. I love like the way he overlaps vocals. That's one thing that he does really, really well. And there's also some guest vocals. She's from another group called Spirit of the Beehive. And funny enough, the two are actually dating. And that's one of the big common themes with the album, actually. And she's on tour with him too, also. Yeah, I love the backing vocals. I love the line of "my heart, it bends before it breaks," and I guess I would see it as more of like, he's not at that breaking point yet of him just going through this like breakup of sorts, you know. It kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of like kind of the concepts it's going for kind of early on. And then I love the second half of the track where it's all again and again and again, and then this like really like incredible like synth like just comes in and it just bangs really hard, and I really love it. And it's like a really nice like ending, and obviously the harmonies are just incredible as always from Panda. So how did you kind of take away this track, Nabaahi?
Yeah, this one is very it starts in this great way with this kind of drum fill and everything, and really just kind of kicks into the groove. That sustains throughout the whole song. I mean, it is kind of, it's hard to be in those moments where you're not quite at the worst part yet you know it's coming. Mm-hmm. I think that's something that I know a lot of people who are very aware of their feelings and very, you know, existential, I guess, know what I'm talking about, where, you know, this situation is kind of coming to a head, but you're not quite there yet. Yeah, you can kind of feel the space and really kind of know this is going to get worse, you know? And I think that line, like you mentioned, really kind of cements it of, you know, my heart, it bends before it breaks. You have to go through a lot before you get to that breaking point. You have to go through a lot of emotions and a lot of feelings of just hurting to get to that point. So this is a really great song for me. I will say it does kind of go on for a bit, but I mean, it's not displeasing in any way. I mean, this is something, like I said, if I was maybe kind of in a kind of self-reflecting moment, maybe a bit more isolated, I could definitely see myself kind of letting this album kind of play through, you know?
For sure. And it's definitely like the most upbeat sounding on the album for sure, which is kind of like, again, like a really fascinating like juxtaposition when you like kind of re-listen to it and you're looking at like the lyrics, you know? I guess re-listening to it for me, it just gave me like a sense of dread, like something like the worst is kind of like you mentioned, the worst is kind of yet to come, you know? And that's a really scary thought, you know? So we'll get to the next track. It's definitely a lot more of a change of pace for sure. And I remember when I first heard the album, when it came out, it was definitely very jarring and it wasn't one of my favorites, but I think after now re-listening to it for the episode, it definitely grew on me a lot more. So the next track we got is Anywhere But Here. It's kind of like a really nice, like slow jam of sorts, you know, with these like really like wailing kind of like guitars. I love just how like kind of slow paced like the drums are on the track. The harmonies again are fantastic. There's this spoken word on the track that's in Spanish too. The refrain is really great. And it's also like another really fascinating juxtaposition where I kind of looked in a little bit of like the Spanish lyrics, and it's a kind of more of like quite the opposite of like what Panda is singing about, of more like he's kind of now in this dark place, whereas like the Spanish spoken word is a lot more of a hopeful refrain throughout.
Yeah. This track is definitely, for me, it feels experimental. You know, this feels like something that is very left of field, especially in terms of the rest of the album. It is not necessarily one of my favorites, but in the concept of this whole album, kind of like I mentioned with Turnover, it has like its place, you know, and it really kind of weaves your emotions in a great way with the rest of the album. I will say some of the rhyme schemes and stuff weren't necessarily my favorite. I really wish maybe that's something that they kind of worked on with this song. It does feel very just kind of like a statement. And I not that I don't like it when songs do that, but I kind of like it when they blend those statements with kind of those hooky melodies and things like that. This does feel very, very kind of strung along, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
But again, in terms of the rest of the album, I will say this has a nice place, you know, in the whole track list of everything.
Yeah. I guess for me, how I kind of took it was more of like he was kind of wallowing through that like depression. I guess that's kind of how I more saw it with like the rhyme schemes and everything like that. So, all right, we'll get into the next track. Again, kind of another little change of pace. That's kind of the one thing with this album, is that it'll really like shift into different, like being upbeat and being like really like, oh wow, that's kind of dark. So this one's called 50 Milligrams. This one's really great also. I really love this one a lot. The delay guitars are like really fantastic on the track. I love just like the synths on the track, the boom, 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 bum, bum. It has this kind of like reggae feel to it. I love the bridge fantastically. And then lyrically for me, I guess I interpreted it more as like, it's showing him kind of like going through the breakup. It's like him coming to this realization finally. And I see it more as like the self-doubt starts to like kick in and everything. And then there's kind of like a bit of I kind of noticed it a little bit recently, but there's like a bit of like a country kind of feel to it. Like if you can kind of hear it closely, you can hear a little bit of like a steel guitar at points throughout the track. So how did you kind of take this one? Yeah,
this one for me definitely switches up the energy based off the last one.
Yeah.
But it has, I feel like it's a nice blend of kind of both those first two tracks of, you know, being a little bit more laid back, but also very upfront with what the lyrics are talking about. I love the line, "We were the only, now it's gone." That's something that's very simple, yet gets a lot
very
across,
effective.
you know?
Yeah.
And that's some of my favorite things in music is when you kind of break the idea down to its very barest form and you state it, you know, like that's something that I think requires a lot of skill. And I think this artist does it very well of just getting off that very basis of the idea, but man, does that say a lot, you know? This one has a nice kind of feel to it, has a nice groove to it. And yeah, it does kind of blend into maybe like a different genre with its guitars, instruments, you know, the strings and everything. It's something that you feel like you're kind of touching on two different worlds, you know?
Yeah. And then I think that's something that Deacon does so well. Like he's able to I don't know how he does it. I don't know if it's like pitch correction or something, but like he's able to like make these guitar sounds that I've never even heard before. And I'm like, I don't know what kind of like effects he uses or like what kind of guitar playing he does, but man, that's one thing that I think really shines with his production on this album for sure. So we'll get to the next track. This was actually one of the teasers for the record. It's called Ends Meet. And this is where I feel like the album gets really dark lyrically. And it's kind of ironic when you hear like the instrumental, you know, if you're not paying attention to the lyrics and you're singing along, because it has this like really sing along chorus to it. But it's one of my favorite examples of, They Might Be Giants does this a lot, of like really upbeat sounding song with really depressing dark lyrics. MGMT does this also, but the instrumental break is really great on it. It's very like kind of like avant-garde, honestly. Like there's this weird like saxophone kind of improv thing that they're doing. And then I just love like the guitars on it. It's definitely the most like, I kind of hate to say it. It's the most Beach Boys sounding song on the album. I really don't like comparing him to it, but I can't help it sometimes. But yeah, it definitely sounds the most Beach Boys for sure. The harmonies are great. I love the What Else Can I Do? Lyrically, it's just very sad. You know, it's just like somebody who's just like, I guess it ties into the title, like ends meet. You know, it's like it's somebody just at their last point and they're about to commit suicide. And it is really, really sad. And I would just love to give him a hug, honestly. Yeah. How did you take away this track?
Yeah, this one's was definitely one of my favorites. I mean, I like the lyric, till the heart don't beat, meet the end, you know? Like that's something. And then followed up by the What Else Can I Do? That says a lot. And that's definitely one of the harder places you can be in throughout your life, is kind of thinking you don't have anything else to do. You have nowhere to go, you know?
Yeah. You're at the lowest point in your life, you know, especially if you've gone through like a breakup.
Yeah.
I know for me, I've gone through a breakup before, but nothing to like this extreme, but you have that just weird low point of like, you feel like hopeless in the situation.
I will say with this track, one thing that I maybe might have liked maybe a little bit more is getting rid of that kind of clicking drum. You know, that's something that I think might have made the track feel a little bit more kind of standout-ish. I feel like that constant kind of beat just kind of influences the track in maybe like a samey way, you know, that some of the other tracks
like blends in with like some of the other songs.
Yeah. And I think this was kind of a great moment, especially lyrically, to kind of stand out and really just like, okay, now we're in a different area, you know. And there are some of the other songs on this album that do that. But I feel like that kind of drum track does kind of distract me maybe a little bit more than I would have anticipated. Obviously the lyrics are super dark and everything, but yeah, it still is very cohesive, and like I said, it's one of my favorites. So
okay, cool, awesome. All right, so we'll get to the next track on here. It's called Just As Well. This one is another really great one for me personally. I love the synth lines on this track. It makes me feel like I'm on an island or something, and I'm about to go get a drink or something like that, you know? I'm about to go sit on my ham hock. Really great guitar licks from Deacon as always. Love Panda's vocals on the track. It's a lot more of the opposite of what you just listened to. I love how hopeful the lyrics are on this one. He's finally kind of getting out of this slump that he's been in with the last few tracks, and I love the line, "Not stopping. Think it's as well. I'm working on a story I can tell you." I think that's just a hard-hitting line. Yeah, I think for me, it's just like it's that feeling of like you're being with somebody new. You've just gone through like this breakup, and now you have these like feelings for somebody else, and you're gonna do like everything you can for this person, you know, and you feel like you've kind of known them and everything now, and like now you want to like make these things for them and be creative with them. I really love that a lot. It really brings out like a creative side to you that sometimes being by yourself can't, you know?
Yeah, I think this track states something that I think a lot of people have felt, kind of having that, not euphoria, but after the dark time, you kind of are mentally aware of depressive feelings. You're mentally aware of, you know, how low you can actually get. And in that, you kind of find like a confidence, you know, you kind of find a moment of really got nothing left to lose, you know, like now it's time to move forward. And I love the line, especially in the beginning, it ties into the chorus. "I can tell I'm stuck on the inside, gonna try my luck on the outside." You know, that's great. That's just great lyricism. And yeah, with the chorus and everything, it's kind of like we mentioned in that Haim song. It's worth stating over and over again. I think that's something when it comes to like repetitiveness in music. If it's something that really hits home, I don't really feel like it's repetitive. Kind of that message repeating over and over. I like it when you have those simple statements and they're worth saying again and again.
It's a hopeful way to showcase
Exactly.
that line too, also, All right, so we get to the next track here, Ferry Lady, which was another teaser for the album. This was the second teaser they released. Yeah, this is another really awesome one that I really love. This was definitely what got me interested in listening to the record for sure. The delayed guitars on the track are great. I love that super groovy bass line that comes in the track. And then the chorus is just super catchy. The Thought We'd Be Friends is just really awesome. For me personally, it just kind of like puts me in this like kind of trance-like feeling when I'm listening to it. And then lyrically, I would say it's kind of like, I see it as like him overthinking everything, and he's kind of getting back into like that dark space that he was on throughout the first half. Like in the chorus, the days we spent, now we don't care. I love how like on the second half of the track, it kind of like the vocals like overlap and they kind of delay. It's him kind of repeating these other mistakes again, and he's kind of going back to like that square one type of approach. How did you take away this track?
Yeah, the production on this one feels kind of trance-like. I think it kind of lends into lyrically like what he's saying, especially with that whole line, lost in thought. This song feels like that. It feels like you're kind of going back and forth with a lot of things, Yeah. And unfortunately, again, when you get through these moments and things, you're kind of left in your head, because no one else has been through this situation. No one else, maybe like a different version of it, or maybe like their own degree of, those darker sides. But sometimes in life, you go through those moments that you're going to be the only person to know what that feels like. And in that, you get lost in thought. You get lost in the back and forth of how could this have played out? How could I have maybe done things differently? Or am I in an okay place? You just start asking yourself all these questions.
It starts to get existential for sure.
Yeah. So I feel like this track does it very well of making it feel musically like you're kind of lost, yet in the lyrics and everything, it's kind of stating that, that's for me really great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Definitely. And this is one that I've gone back to a lot. And I can also see why they would have this as a teaser, because honestly, it really just fits everything with the album, honestly. Mm-hmm. So we get to the next track, another shift in tone with the record. This is probably I'd probably say this is the second saddest track. We'll get into the one I think is the saddest. It's called Venom's In, and no, it does not relate to Venom. Lyrically, I feel like the Venom kind of represents like the negative thoughts and anxiety of the breakup. It's starting to get worse again, but probably even more worse. Instrumentally, I love how it really does match the lyrics of the track and the mood of just feeling like, how would I say it? I guess for me, it puts me in this kind of state of like dread. And I would say probably like this feeling of like hopelessness, oddly enough, I feel like I'm in like a forest and I'm lost when I'm listening to it. The chorus, I think, is really great on the song. I love these, like, I think it's like chopped guitars or something like that, mixed in with like these really great like synths that feel kind of like ambient at times. So how did you take this one away?
Yeah, this one does feel like it kind of paints a picture in your head with the melodies and everything. It really, I could see myself kind of taking more time with, definitely. I feel like this was one that I really need to, like I said, being in that kind of quieter place, to kind of really process everything. But some of the lines I really enjoyed, like the soon it's all over, can't get much lower, proved by the feel of it, can't make up the minds, and when the way is hidden, like it's just like hearing poetry, and with the way this guy is singing it, it hurts to know that people can go through these emotions and yet feel well enough, but also in a bad spot still to kind of outwardly sing them, and that's hard. And that's some of the greatest things I think about music is sometimes you aren't fully well enough to share the music, yet you still want to share it. you know?
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of like how you mentioned, he's kind of going back and forth with this thing. Sometimes you're thinking about it in the more positive way. Sometimes you kind of retrace your steps.
It's more pessimistic, like, because I don't know. For me, like, I could relate to that because, like, sometimes I'll be like, oh, you know, it's not as bad as I thought, and then there's like some days when I'm like feeling like not the best. It's like it just takes over me. It just feels like a cloud like looming over me a lot of the time, and I think that's also why, for me personally, this song like hit really, really hard for me. It's just very somber. It's just like a very somber track. And it's probably one of the more somber tracks I've heard from Panda Bear, honestly, even with some of the ones that are a bit more upbeat and do have like those more dark lyrics. This one is like even somber for Panda, honestly. Yeah. So we'll get into the next track. I feel like the next two tracks I feel like are the most somber and dark. So I'll just kind of put that as a fair warning. So Left in the Cold is another really great slow burner of a track for me. However, this one is a lot more hopeful, luckily, especially with the lyric, "We could beat 'em." You know, it's so simple, yet it's so effective for me. You know, it is really just as simple as like, we could beat this, you know, we could get out of this. I see it more as like, he's finally fighting these demons. He's finally fighting and getting over this breakup of sorts. The harmonies are great. The guitar work, as always, has been fantastic on the album. I love the pianos in the first half. I was really surprised to hear pianos on this track. I love it on the first half of the track. And again, like, I feel like it's relatable to me because it's like he's finally gaining control of these negative thoughts. He's not letting them get to his head. And I love the rising sits that come in when he says, "We could beat him" again. And I just love how hypnotic it is too. You know, it really does get you lost in the track, but it's more of like a hopeful kind of loss. Like, you feel like you're about to find the light at the end of the tunnel.
I think you touched on it very well with the word hypnotic. That's what this track really feels like. Like, you put it on and like you kind of get lost with, you know, where you are. You kind of get lost with, you know, everything around you. And I'm glad that this track does focus more on that instrumental side. You know, it has the lyrical moments. They're very, very sprinkled throughout the track, very small. But I think that's what this song really needed, was kind of that space to really make you feel, you know, kind of in a different otherworldly place, you know, very hypnotic. Yeah,
for sure. Which is something I love so much with Panda Bear's music, is like he creates these like soundscapes, especially with this record with him and Deacon. It's just like they create these soundscapes that like you can't explain, and they just kind of like put you in this atmosphere that I just am like, I feel like that's why I find music to be such a powerful thing, you know, is because of artists like this, because of albums like this. All right, so we'll get into the next track of the album. I think this is probably for me, I will say this is probably my least favorite track on the album, but I still do really like it. It's Elegy for Noah Lou. The off-key synths were okay. They did feel a little bit out of place on the track. There's kind of like a cold, distant vibe that I got from it personally to the song, especially with the lyric, "Swept in the swell of the storm, looking for an embrace that's warm." It just gives me a somewhat melancholic feel with the lyrics. And I feel like this is probably the most melancholic, honestly, throughout the whole album.
Yeah, this one is very, very, I feel like it takes kind of what we were talking about in the last song and just kind of pushes you into that, you know, which I didn't mind. Like I said, if I'm in a mood to kind of feel maybe a little bit more existential and things like that, I could see myself kind of seeking something like this out.
Yeah.
However, when you first hear it, it's just like something that you are just not expecting, you know, and it holds you there. Because I think this track is like 6 minutes or something.
Yeah, it's like almost 7 minutes. It's really long. I think it does go on for a little too long, personally. I think it could have been trimmed down to maybe like 2 or 3 minutes, and I feel like you still would have been able to get the message across, but I could kind of see where they're coming from with making this a little bit longer.
No, definitely. This is something that... it's very interesting to see an artist kind of take time for this kind of music, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
I think it states a lot to kind of, as an artist, really not feel the need to kind of compress yourself in any way. Usually in those moments, that's where you hear the more experimental type work, you know?
Yeah, definitely, for sure.
But yeah, that track's definitely kind of puts you in that feeling, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And so we get to the final track, which funny enough was released as the first teaser, which I'm usually not a fan of when the artist releases like the closing track as the first teaser. But I will say it is a really incredible closer. So this track is called Defense, and they got Cindy Lee as a feature, which is insane. I think this is the first feature she's done, actually. She doesn't do any vocals or anything on the track, but she does a lot of like really fantastic guitar work on the song. The guitar solo you hear in the middle, that's Cindy Lee. She has a really great album from last year called Diamond Jubilee that you guys should also check out too if you guys are interested at all in Cindy Lee's music and you love the guitar work that she did. But yes, it's a really incredible closer though. The guitar lead is, like I mentioned, from Cindy Lee, is fantastic. Her solo comes in and it's great. The song definitely has more of a melancholic feel to the track, where he feels like he's defeated, but it's also like hopeful, like this is where I was kind of mentioning earlier. This feels like the light at the end of the tunnel for this album, especially with the line, "Here I come." I feel like he's finally letting go of the negative thoughts that we've been hearing throughout the album, and he's just gonna like move on with whether it's the new relationship or just a new thing that's going on in his life. That's how I very much took it. And yeah, I love just the drums on this track. I love like the rising synths that come in. And vocally, it's really, really great. So how did you take away this track?
Yeah, I really enjoyed this track. This was one that when it came on, I definitely was like, all right, like this, I don't know. This just sounds like something that I wouldn't really think I would like something like this, yet hearing it in this kind of context, it really works for me. I think vocally, he kind of goes for like something a little bit different on this song compared to the rest. It sounds like maybe he's a bit more lower in the register, a bit more kind of just complimenting the song, because the song musically is really, really great. And I feel like he kind of knows when to add his vocals through it, And I just like that. I like it when a song gives kind of moments for each part, production wise, instrument wise, and then vocally. And then you kind of arrive at the end of like, damn, that was really cohesive with, the way the bass was working, the way the drums are working. Yeah, this song for me was really great. And I just like the simplicity of the "Here I Come," that's just something that works really well for me,
Yeah, and I love how it's repeated throughout the track too.
With me, I just love guitar work in general. So hearing hearing like like lyrically, you hear the music and emotion conveyed through words, through song. And I love it when you hear that same message conveyed through an instrument, That's something that I just have the most respect for. I have the most love for, is just feeling those same emotions, but through an instrument. That's something that is hard.
It is really hard to pull off. And,
especially with guitars, like it's short, but man, it does that, get across that same feeling that is portrayed throughout the rest of the song.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And it's so cool they got her for this song, because like she very rarely, if ever, does a feature or anything like that. She's very underground, very lesser known for sure to like a mainstream community. So it's really cool to see like Panda Bear and Deacon getting her for this song and really just getting like a great guitar solo out of the track. It really just, I love when a feature can do that, and they're not like singing on the song or anything like that, So yeah, that was the end of the album for everything. This is one I really love a lot. I will mention for you Panda Bear fans and Animal Collective fans out there, I asked Nabaahi to listen to one more track that was a bonus track that was released for the album, or not really a bonus track, but more so like a track that was released as like a double single with Defense, but it didn't get released until like a few months ago officially. So the track is called Virginia Tech, and it is fantastic. And I'm actually really sad this did not end up on the album, because honestly, I think it really fits the themes of the track, and I think it really fits the sound and everything of the album. It's definitely the second most like crazy, very like kind of electronic. I love these pitch samples at the beginning. I love how this track just like has a really fantastic progression throughout, and the way it explodes at the end is just mind-blowing to me. I love the robotic feel of like the guitar playing. I don't know how they did that effect, but it's really, really awesome. It feels probably like the most hopeful and also kind of melancholic, especially with the second verse where he's all, my depression. You know, it's just like, wow, okay. Like it's great. You know, like I really love the harmonies on this track. I love Panda singing on here. It feels a little deadpan at times for sure, but I still really love it. So yeah, how did you take away this final bonus double single thing that
like
released?
you, I mean, I really enjoyed it. I feel like this album, could have used more of this type of sound. This is something that I really enjoyed. And obviously hearing that it's kind of like a bonus track or whatever, it's kind of leaves me questioning. I'm like, why was this kind of left on the chopping block, I guess.
Yeah.
I especially love lyrically the reinterpreting kind of one line. You know, I love it when artists do that. Like throughout the song, he has the my direction, but then he kind of changes what he means by that with
my
each
depression.
kind of line.
Yeah.
Same thing with the my depression, trying to mend my depression, seeing the end, my depression kind of changes your thoughts on that word, you know? And I think that's very creative as an artist to do. Maybe some people might find it gimmicky or whatever, but I really enjoy that.
I think it's pretty effective most of the time, honestly.
So I don't know, that really, I definitely hearing it. I obviously really enjoyed it, really loved it, but just kind of hearing that it was kind of left to the chopping block is unfortunate, you know?
Yeah, I know. That made me really sad after listening to it. I was like, honestly, this would have made the album even better than I already loved it.
Yeah.
You know, it's just kind of weird, but
yeah.
Oh well. I'm glad it's here. I'm glad they officially released it finally, because it was only available on vinyl for like the longest time. And so it wasn't until like, I think like June or July, they finally like put it on streaming, and they finally like officially released it on like the YouTube channel and everything. So yeah, overall, this is easily for me one of my favorite albums of the year. It's one I've been coming back to a lot since I've listened to it in February. Yeah, just overall, I feel like this is probably my favorite Panda Bear album I've listened to since Person Pitch. Or I don't know, it's hard to pick because a lot of his albums are really great. And again, all of them are just really wildly different. Even this album is very different for Panda Bear. But yeah, lyrically, I really love it a lot. I love just the melancholic feelings that it's able to get across. And I love the sense of like, you know, these shifting feelings of like going through this hard time or breakup in your life. I think it's really, really effective of how they portrayed it on the album. And then obviously the singing is always great. I'm really grateful he got Deacon for this record, because I feel like him and Deacon, I think, are really, like a really great collaborative producing team that I think that's honestly the best thing you can do sometimes when you're making albums, is you have somebody else you can work with and you really like get a chance to like get a lot from them, you know, than if you're like maybe working by yourself. So yeah, really great album. One I would really recommend to you guys. Just be wary. There are a lot of really dark lyrics at times. There are a lot of, there's a couple songs on here that may need a little bit more time to click with you. This is one that may be a little bit harder for you guys to get into, but this is one that I've really connected with a lot. So a couple favorite tracks I'll shout out for you guys. I will say probably 50 MG, I think, is a really great one. That's one that I've been kind of coming back to a lot. Defense, I think, even though, yes, I know it's a closing track, I still do recommend it because I feel like it is probably it was for me, one of the reasons I got into the album was because of this song. I'll say Praise because this is one that I've been just obsessed with. I can't stop listening to it. It's very addicting, and I love the addicting sound to this track. And then I'll just shout out the bonus track. I'll say check out Virginia Tech, you know, and if it's interesting to you guys, really check it out. Honestly, I would say those would be my four picks.
This album for me was a very kind of big surprise. I mean, you don't really realize how much music is out there. I mean, there's so many artists, so many different producers and things like that. And yeah, it's like Wallied mentioned, you got to kind of give time for them. You got to kind of recognize that space, you know. All these artists are all coming from that same place of reflecting their thoughts through music, through melodies, through song structure. And that's a big thing, and that's a hard thing to do. This album is very, very kind of quiet and reserved, so I really recommend kind of matching that headspace if you do listen to it. I mean, you could be like me and play it in the car, but I feel like that kind of does a disservice, and I feel like you really kind of need to focus lyrically on what's going on, and you need to focus on all the emotions that come along with this music. I guess I'll say for me, favorite tracks that I'd recommend, Praise would be one of them. Ends Meet I really, really enjoyed. And then Defense, I think for me, is probably my favorite out of all of them.
Oh, nice.
So I definitely recommend any of those three. But obviously to the average listener, I would kind of say just be ready for the low points this album gets into. Be ready for the quiet moments that this album gets into. This isn't just, putting on kind of that uplifting music. This kind of requires a different mindset,
Yeah, for sure. So if you guys love this album, really check out the rest of Panda Bear's discography. One album I'll recommend of his that's kind of a little similar is Panda Bear Meets the Grim Reaper. It kind of ties a little bit more into like the themes of death and everything like that. But that definitely is like a lot more electronic and a lot more psychedelic for sure. And if you're feeling like going down the rabbit hole, like really check out Animal Collective and check out their albums. One I'll recommend for anyone interested is Merryweather Post Pavilion or Strawberry Jam. I think those are probably the best entry points for getting more into this band and getting more into Panda Bear and his style. All right. So I guess that's it for this one. Thank you guys for listening and everything. Hopefully you guys check out this album. This will definitely be in my top 5 of favorite albums of this year for sure. It's one I've come back to a lot. And I'm grateful an album like this exists,
Yeah, definitely check it out. Let us know what you guys think.
All right. Good day and good night, mates.
We'll see you on the next one.